Hey guys, Project Reaper here, and today I am bringing you a redo of the video about block, and I'm doing that for a couple reasons. One, I'm here in the patch. It's the 26th of March, and this is in the PTR, I mean to say, and this patch will go live on the live servers on the 29th, so we're 3 days away from this going to the live servers, where we'll get the new hero Dehaka and a rework of Illidan. Oh, my brain stopped. Illidan, Gazlowe, I should have made a list, guys. Sylvanas, Kael'thas, and Tychus. Those are the 5 heroes that got a major rework. And then also some abilities. And block is one of those abilities. It's not a major rework, it's just a major buff. So before, what it was doing was it was reducing a basic attack damage by half, by 50% every 5 seconds. It's now reducing that damage by a whopping 75%, 3/4 of the damage. So that's the only thing that's changed about it, is they just switched that number from 50 to 75, which is, you know, that's 50% better than it was. It's 50% better than it was, and this is, against the right opponents, gonna prove to be very valuable. So the other reason I needed to remake this video is my friend mentioned to me that a couple of the heroes I said you need block against, he didn't agree with. And I went back through the numbers, and what I found was when you go into try and you set a level, it remembers that level, and I was not aware of that. So about halfway through my number checking, I guess I had switched the level up to like 15. And so I thought a couple heroes had higher damage than they actually do. So I've remade that list for you, and I'm gonna take that other video down and direct anybody who finds that video to this new video so that you guys can get that updated info. So block is now across the board. Anywhere that any hero gets a power that says block, it will now be a 75% reduction. And so that would mean things like this talent here called Reactive Parry, as you can see here, gives block, and as you can see up there in the, I can't point at it or it goes away, but the 75% there. And then, like, for example, the ability Pixie Dust, which provides block to any hero, even ones who can't get block, it's also a 75% buff, which is going to make Brightwing actually quite a bit better, as long as you can time that right when the enemy attacking the person that you drop it on. It's gonna be huge. There's one other one I wanted. Jaina has Frost Armor, which is a little interesting. This one does work a little different. It provides block every 8 seconds, and they don't stack. But it is still, again, it's a 75% reduction. So anywhere you see that word block, like it says right here, you'll know that it's a 75% reduction from basic attacks. So let's kind of talk about when you'll want this. And I made a nice little list for you guys. I will put this in the description so that you can reference back to it, but I've also kind of just separated it out for you. So as you can see, it's mostly going to be assassins and warriors that you need this against, but it's not all of them. These are the ones who hit really hard and also who can buff their basic attack damage and will buff their basic attack damage. So Leoric and Arthas is actually, he's a big deal. He has Frostmourne Hungers, which doubles his attack damage, and his attack damage is already pretty high, so having block against him will prove very, very helpful. Diablo hits very hard. Cho'Gall, being 2 heroes in one, he hits very hard. He hits way harder than anybody else. He hits, I think at level 1 it's like 239, and everybody else is like 170 or below, so it's pretty nasty. Now Sonya, surprisingly, actually, she's like one of the lowest hitting strength, or not strength, sorry guys, different games. She's one of the lowest hitting warrior heroes as far as attack damage. However, if using focused attack at level 4, which I kind of want to go over here when I get to, I mean, you'll notice this focused attack thing is kind of a repetitive thing. If you really look at how focused attack works, which let's do that real quick. Raynor has focused attack. It's a level 4 talent. Every 10 seconds, your next basic attack will deal an additional 60 damage. So Raynor, who normally deals mediocre damage, it's like 125 at level 1, buff that by 25, or excuse me, by 60%. 60% is quite a bit, and on 125, he's going to be hitting close to 200 damage. So if you can reduce that by 75, that's gonna 75%. I mean, that's gonna be huge. Against 200 damage, you're looking at reducing that by 150 and only taking 50 damage from that huge crit. Now, the thing that I want you to consider here is the way that it's timed. Block versus focused attack. Block is really, in my opinion, it's a direct counter to this power focused attack. So it might be, especially if you like being a warrior, if you like being the tank, it might be worth learning which heroes have this focused attack and knowing to watch for it. I've even gone as far in some games when I'm playing ranked and I'm playing a tank as to not take my level 1 talent until we hit level 4, and I'll go check the talents page, and if I see that the enemies are using focused attack, then I take block. And if they don't, then I'll take something else. It would depend on what hero I'm playing. And I will explain that more in the different hero videos. If you have questions about how I build any hero, I'm working on getting a video up for every single hero, and just my mentality of when I take certain paths and how I find synergy in the characters. But let's talk about this focus attack a little bit more. So every 10 seconds, and this is cooled down by basic attacks. And then if you look at block again, at least standard block, you get a stack every 5 seconds. So just base, when Raynor hasn't attacked you for a minute, so you haven't been attacked for a minute, you will have stacks of block. He will have a charge of focused attack. He'll run in and hit you. You're gonna get that damage reduction. It's kind of the same thing with Frostmourne Hungers here on Arthas. When he runs in, he almost always is going to start with this move. The reason for that is he wants it to cool down while he's battling so he can use it a second time. And so like 90% or more of Arthases are going to run in, and the first thing they're going to hit you with is going to be a slow, or the freeze actually, the root, Howling Blast. But then they're going to run up, and that basic attack, their first basic attack, it's going to hit for twice as hard. So if you, at that point, haven't been attacked and have that stack of block, you're going to reduce that double crit by 75%. It's going to be huge. So it's really just all going to come down to, again, the heroes that you're up against. And this focused attack, I really feel like block is a direct counter to focus attack. So I went through the assassins again. I made sure I was at level 1 when I was looking at these. Greymane hits the hardest, for sure. Greymane hits very hard. It's like in the 150 region. It's a lot harder than actually Butcher, but he's melee, so you got, and Butcher heals off his damage, so it makes sense, like the way that his kit's designed, and we'll talk about that more in the Butcher video. But these 3 or 4 top ones hit really, really hard, and then these ones. The thing about Nova, let me just pull her up real quick and I can show you why she's on the list, because if you actually pull up her character sheet, you do that by pushing the C button in-game. You can't do it in this load screen, and I'm not going to bother doing that now, but just so you guys know, C is to pull up your character sheet. That's where I'm getting this attack damage numbers. And Nova's, she's pretty low, but at 7, most people aren't confident enough to use Snipe Master. If you see here the very last sentence, all stacks are lost if you miss at all. So most people will not take this. So you can assume pretty confidently against a Nova that they're going to be using one of these two. And both of these are a buff to her basic attack damage. So, and this is Nova we're talking about. So you're probably going to be, you know, running through a forest, likely not engaged on anyone. She's going to pop out, she's going to shoot an ability. Since it's an ability, it doesn't affect your block. And then right after that, she's going to shoot you with a basic attack. And that basic attack's either going to do 250% bonus damage, or it's going to do 80% bonus damage, because 90% odds are she's going to be using one of these. And to reduce these huge buffs by 75%, it's going to be substantial. It's going to make a big difference. And then we already talked about focused attack. Also, yeah, Raynor just hits surprisingly hard considering how fast he attacks, but he's on the list not because he hits in like I said before, the 125 region, so it's not the hardest. But if he's using focused attack and boosting his basic attacks, then you might want to watch out for that. And then Illidan, you can check this right at level 1. They just reworked Illidan. He will have this one talent that, where are alphabetical order reaps? There we go. Talent 1, Battered Assault. So this will increase his basic attack damage. Now, Illidan attack damage is fairly low, but very quick. And that's why a lot of assassins, like, for instance, Falstad and Vala, they're not on this list. You don't want block against these particular heroes because although they put out the same damage over 3 seconds, they do the same damage per second, they do not do the same damage per hit. These heroes that attack super quickly attack for less damage. It just adds up to the same over that calculation of time. But block doesn't calculate time. Block is for a single hit. So the reason to take block is against those people who hit once really hard, just to clarify that. And so that's why when you, again with the Battered Assault, he's taking his minimal damage and ramping it up to double when he uses Battered Assault. So that it'll make a big difference, I promise. I've been fighting Illidan every single game I've played on the PTR because they reworked him. Everybody wants to play him. He's in every single game. And it's quite effective. You block quite a bit of damage. It's really nice. The buff to block is awesome. Brightwing's so great now, guys. I love Brightwing even more. Always been one of my favorite supports, but this buff to block, it's nice, dude. You feel a lot more useful like in certain circumstances with Brightwing in the past against certain enemy compositions, like especially in quick match when you didn't pick Brightwing as a counter. You would just fight people who you couldn't do a lot against. Like the way that you heal in an AoE, it just wasn't working well against how much they'd burst down a single hero. And so this is going to help you stop that burst damage in a way that Brightwing couldn't do quite as much before. And I'm quite excited about that. And then let me jump back to the list. So the reason Rehgar's on here, he turns into a wolf, he lunges at you, and it does double melee damage. He's the only support that hits hard enough to justify block. But if he's smart, he's going to be using that wolf form a lot. It's only a 4-second cooldown, and because of the way that it dashes in at you, any smart Rehgar, that's how he's going to close the distance, and then he'll drop the totem behind you. So he's going to double his damage, but you're then going to reduce that double damage by 3/4 and just completely neuter that crit. And then again, focused attack here on Tyrande. She is one of these, just like Vala and Falstad, she attacks really quickly, but not very hard. But because of how quickly she attacks, she can stack that focused attack up. She'll proc it about every 5 seconds, and you'll be blocking it and countering it. Then we've got Sgt Hammer. Really great to have block against Sgt Hammer. Sgt Hammer, at every level of talent, can choose to boost their basic attack. So some, they boost it every time and they hit crazy hard. Some will only boost it here or there, but they're gonna boost it all the time. They're gonna be doing splash damage, and they're gonna be far back, and you've got to close the distance to them. Having that block against a Sgt Hammer it's so helpful. And then Gazlowe, so I thought Gazlowe hit harder than he did, and he was one of the characters that I was looking at level 20, but he doesn't hit quite as hard as we thought. However, in the rework, they've made this buff to him that is quite crazy. Where are you, Gazlowe? I'm specialist Gazlowe. So you will now at level 20 deal 150 bonus damage to heroes. 150 just every single attack. So until level 20 you don't really need block against Gazlowe, but at level 20, if he took Mecha-Lord, then block is going to have a nice benefit. So that being said, that's why he has the 2 stars. He doesn't really qualify for this list. But the other thing about this list is okay, so if you're the tank, if you're going to be absorbing the most damage on your team, if you're the only warrior and there's no other warriors, just assume that you're going to have to tank a little bit. Let's say you have no warriors, right? And you're the only melee, like maybe you're Kerrigan. There's a reason Kerrigan has block, and it's because she has to get up in the fray, and sometimes she's going to need to reduce some of that damage, or she's just going to pop too quickly. So, you know, those are what to look at. But when it comes down to it, you want block if you're up against 3 or more of these heroes. If you're the tank, or no, sorry, if there's 2 or more of these heroes, I should just make a new post-it note for this. 2 or more heroes from this list. If you are the tank, take block. And if there's 3 or more heroes from this list, take block, even if you're not the tank. It's gonna make a big difference. And I mean, again, this is just my opinion, guys, but I would at least recommend trying it, because block does make a big difference. I like block a lot, and it's very underused. So hopefully, no, I didn't want to do that, guys. I lost that post-it note. Let's do. Alright, sorry about that, guys. So now I just want to go over one more thing real quick, but I've been over the majority of the content. This is for like specifically people who are going to be tanking a lot, or really want a better understanding of when block is going to be the most beneficial. So there are talents that are spread across all the heroes. Not every hero has all these talents, but a lot of heroes do have these talents. So it's worth keeping an eye out, and if you watch my other videos as I go through every hero, you're going to learn which ones have it and which ones can hit really hard in these ways. But it was worth mentioning here in the block video, especially since they've just buffed block. So at level 1, several assassins, mostly assassins. There are a few other, I believe, I know Arthas, who's a warrior, can take this, seasoned marksman, and it'll just buff your attack damage throughout the game. It's just it's gonna ramp up more and more, and honestly, most of the time, it's uncompelling amount of damage. It's not worth block. However, if you're on a map where it's like the spider map and you're laning the whole game, you could get a lot of seasoned marksman stacks, and you can not double your damage, but you can add up to, I've seen, I think up to 50 or 60 additional damage added on from seasoned marksmen. And so if they're using that and then also having any form of boost, like these focused attack crits or anything, it's gonna help, but it's not a priority in my opinion. It just depends on what kind of build your enemies are going for. So the further you get into ranked play, you're gonna learn what combinations of enemy teams go for what. You're gonna be able to see, oh, they have a Raynor, and he's probably gonna go seasoned marksman focused attack because we're on the spider map, and so I'm gonna take block. But you know, that type of thing, you can learn a lot of that from me, but it's also gonna take practice, and it's just gonna kind of take learning. And another thing is, I highly recommend checking your enemy's talents throughout the game. Sometimes you might take block and it doesn't end up justified, but most of the time, if you follow this list of heroes and this little general rule, I think you'll find block to be very helpful. Now, we already talked about focused attack, so I'm going to jump right to Searing. Tyrande has this at level 4. Zeratul has this at level 7. They do the exact same thing. You activate it, and you deal 50% more damage every hit. So, because it's every hit, and block only blocks 2 attacks, it's not gonna make a huge difference, which is why it didn't rate the big list here on the left. However, if you're comboing this with focused attack, which is what I do, especially on Tyrande. Like if I'm on Tyrande, if I have Tyrande and several, I've had a game where we had 3 healers, and so I had to go DPS. Getting focused attack and searing arrows, or actually you can't do both. I lied. What did I do with her? Now I want to know. There's definitely a build I have with her for damage. Because those are both at the same, and I normally take searing arrows and, oh yeah, battle momentum, and then I just combo it with fury. Anyway, ooh, I did it again. So then we've got follow through at level 7. This is, actually we already talked about that. It's the power that Nova has. Hers is called One in the Chamber, but it's the exact same thing. They just have several names for it. Sylvanas actually gets it at level 16, and it's called Remorseless. And again, it's hard to block. It's impossible to block all those crits, but if it's being comboed with focused attack or seasoned marksman, it's worth it to block, you know, even a few of them. Now, this is only if you're a high HP character, so primarily if you're a warrior. But if you're up against enemies who can take Giant Killer at level 13, and you say you have 2 tanks on your team, you can assume that they're going to take Giant Killer to deal with your 2 tanks. And if you want to know more about this, I will put a link right here to the Giant Killer video, and you can see more about what I'm talking about. But if you have 2 or more tanks, you can make that general assumption that they're going to take Giant Killer, and then you know block's going to help you that much more. And then Executioner's a hard one, guys. It's really hard to know when your team's going to go for Executioner, or your enemy team's going to go for Executioner. My buddies and I like to do a Vala Zul combo. It's really nasty. We can add slows to several of our abilities. I have a root as Zul right off the bat. I can add slow to my scythe, and then you get the crits on every cleave. And then Vala can add slow to her spread attack, and she has the stun on her ult. And so we're in voice comms, and we communicate together. Alright, I'm going to do my slow first, and then as soon as it wears off, he does his slow, so we're both just critting Executioner the whole time. Now, block's only going to help with 2 of those attacks, but it might be enough for you to scare the person away who's chasing you or whatnot. Hopefully you don't get ganked in that fashion, because if you're getting ganked, if you're all alone and it's Vala and Zul, you're probably toast anyway. But, yeah. So I think I have covered everything I wanted to cover on the new block. I really hope you liked and found the video helpful. If you did, please hit that like button at the bottom, as that helps me. But also, if you have any friends who you think would find this information helpful, I appreciate any shares or directing your friends to my channel. Speaking of which, if you like the channel and you want to see more videos from me, you can hit right here, and that will subscribe you to my channel. And then also over here are some other videos that I've made regarding some video game stuff. So hopefully you find all that as informational as you found this. I hope to see you guys next time, and have yourself a great day.